Students, in this class we are going to learn three different methods and how they are different. Now I'm going to start off by giving the illustration for init method and for str method. Now we all know that init method gets fired the minute that we create the object, and as far as the str method is concerned, it gets fired when we print the object. So that is exactly what we are going to see. So I'm going to start off by creating a class. So I'm going to say student record, and let me start the init method. I'm going to print, say, a welcome address. Welcome to student login record. So I will get an input. Please enter student name and then probably the student's roll number. So these two inputs are received. Now I'm going to create an object, name it as student1 is equal to student record. So this object is created. Now when I try to run it, now let me run it and show to you what exactly is going to happen. So the welcome message is printed and it prompts us to enter the student name. I'm going to say check and roll number 10012, and the process is finished. So the idea of the program is to show to you that the init method gets fired the very minute you create the object. Now let me show you the str method. I'm going to print the reference variable or the object student1. Now I'm running it. Now you will see the following. So I'm going to enter the name Jack and roll number, say, 10012. Now the minute I give enter, I'm getting this. Now what does this exactly mean? This is nothing but the memory location of the object student1. That is exactly being produced for us by who? By the str method. But we have not called the method at all, but yet the str method displays us the memory location of the object. Why? Just like the init method, which is a constructor, the str method is also functions in a manner. The minute that we print the reference variable, the method gets automatically triggered. So on line with the init method, str method occupies the same position as the init method, but the only difference between the str method and the init method is that in case of the str method you will have to print the object, and more so the str method returns only string. Now this str method can be overridden. I'm going to show to you that by means of this illustration. So let's go back to the program. So we got this program. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to override this method. I'm going to say def underscore str underscore self, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to say return thanks for logging in. So let me run this. Now if I were to run it, it's asking the student name. I'm going to say Jack, and now when I say enter, I'm not getting the message. I'm not getting the location for the object. You see that? When I print it, the message I'm getting is thanks for utilizing the services. So meaning I have overridden the str method here. Now this method is being overridden. So we are not getting the memory location for the object. Instead we are getting a message. Now let me just change that and say return say 10012. Practically it can be any number. So I'm running it. Now when I run it, the first line, in other words the init method, gets fired, so that's fine. I'm going to say you go roll number 10013, and I'm giving an enter. You see that it says str returned non-string value. The reason being that the method return a non-string value. So that is the reason that we are not able to override the str method. So this is one such illustration. Create a class, define the init method here, print saying enter student information. So next is I'm going to instantiate a class variable, self.name is equal to input, enter student name. I'll copy this. I want to receive two more inputs, so this will be roll number and this will be grade. Now I am going to define one more method. I'm going to define, say, student record, print the inputs in this fashion. So I will say print the name and then roll number and then grade, and I will give the format self.name, self.roll number, self.grade. So everything looks fine. The only thing is that we have to create the object. So I'm going to say student1 is equal to student record. So the object is created. So using this object, I'm going to print student record. So I'm going to run it. When I run it, I will get this init method fired, and then following that I will also get this method fired. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also print the reference variable. So I'm going to print the object here. So print student1, enter student information. I will say student name Jack, roll number 1201, and then student grade A. So it says that the output is here and the memory location for the object is here. So this is fine. Now the question comes is, what if I don't want to use this method? Because I'm actually calling the method from here. I'm calling the method using the object. So I don't want to do this, because if there is a way by which this method can be automatically fired, then I would be more than happy with that, because I'm not using the reference variable to, or in other words the instantiated object to call these methods. In a particular program there can be scores of methods, and every time I need to be calling these methods means I need to write extra lines of code. So I want to find an alternative by which I can get rid of this. Of course, these methods cannot be totally eliminated from their utilization, but there are cases where we can replace them. That is when we can use the method as str. I'm overriding it here because this method gets instantiated the minute you create the object and you print it. In the previous case, I utilized this print student1. It gave me the memory location associated with this object. But in this case, when I say print student1, it is not going to give me the memory location associated with the object, but it is going to fire this line of code. So this is what is expected actually. Now there is going to be an exception in this case, and I would want you all to see that exception. So I'm going to run it. So when I run it, enter the name. I'm going to say Jack, and roll number 1201, and grade is A. So when I click enter, as I mentioned to you, we are having an exception. So the exception is, you can see that it says it returned a non-string value. So what exactly does it mean? So it means I am not supposed to use this print here. If you can clearly see here, I'm not supposed to use this print here. In the case of init, I am able to use this print. There is no exception here. But in the case of str, there is an exception being thrown. So that means I need to get rid of this print and substitute it with return. Now when I do that and when I run it, you will see the output has got, it will not deliver any exception. So Jack 1201, and then student is A, the grade is A, and I enter and it gives me the output in the following manner, and there aren't any exceptions. So have that in mind. Whenever you are using this str, you need to use a return statement. So it returns a value. And point 2 is, now if I were to replace this, if I were to take this off, and if I were to say return 100, now you will again get an exception. So for this time I will enter this student Chloe, roll number 12002, and then I will say grade A. I give an enter. So you see that there is an exception. So it says it is, as I mentioned to you, in this case it says it's a non-string quantity that is being returned. So you see that an integer value. So strs are not built to return non-string values. So you can't return an integer quantity. So these are some of the important insights that you will have to know, or you will have to grasp when you're using str method. So having mentioned that, we will move on to the next topic. Students, we are going to see another important method which is on par with str method. This is the illustration that we were looking in, and we got the init method and we got the str method here. Now this method which I'm going to talk to you about is called as the dell method. So it's actually underscore del underscore, and of course within the parenthesis we place in self. But in this case, what we are going to do is we are going to study the importance of this dell method. Now we got the init method and it is going to get fired when the object is created, and we got the str method. Now I'm just going to get rid of this str method, and I'm going to just have a common method which can be accessed by the object. So I'm going to say student, say records. So this method can be accessed by the object student one dot student records. Now I want to add one simple print statement here after the data has been fed in. So I'm going to say print the records were successfully inserted. So that's a message. Now I'm going to execute this. Now when I execute this, the following will happen. The input would be prompted from the user, the data would be entered, and the message would be displayed. I'm going to get rid of this. Now let's run it. So I'm going to say try, and roll number 10022, and then grade B. So this record is inserted. Now someone wants to access this record, and I want to terminate this entire program right over here. Of course I can exit it, but even in that case the methods mentioned here can be accessed by the object. So what if I want a mechanism by which once the data is inserted, no one should be in a position to access these methods and get the data of the object? So the only thing is that we need to protect the object. So what better way can we have other than to destroy the object? Simply say del student1. So that's it. So you destroy this object. So once you destroy this object, this method will become null and void. So I'm going to run it and I'm going to show it to you. So it is asking for student name. I'm going to say Troy, and student roll number 10022, and grade is B. I'm giving enter. The record was successfully inserted. Somebody is trying to access it, and it says student 1 is not defined. So that's it. This exception, of course, we can design a way to handle this exception. That wouldn't be an issue. But the underlining point is, once we destroy the object, relevant data that could be received by accessing the method via the object is absent. It's just not possible.